Survivor specialist Phil and Alexa are back. Today we are joined by the still best 18-year-old player in Survivor history. You know, you did last the most days out of any of them.
That's one way of looking at it, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
There
glad
you go.
Glad to be here. Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me on the show. Excited to get to the rankings.
Yeah, it's a shame that we couldn't get you on before Michael got voted out, so you could like throw some heat at him or something, because he was coming for your record there. I guess really it's not like an insane record, but for 18-year-olds, you still played the most days and placed the best, right?
Yeah, well, I think Julia got 7th place, but I lasted a few more days than she did. I think I lasted like 34 days. So yeah, if you're looking at days, I think I have the record.
You gotta run with that.
What was that?
That's what's more important.
Gotta run with the days.
Yeah, go with the days. Yeah, of course. But I got to give it up to Michael though. He played a great game. He found 2 idols, which is like amazing, and he definitely really hustled out there in a way that I kind of wish I did. And if I ever got a second chance to play, obviously I want to win, but I want to hustle the way that he did and like play a lot more of an aggressive game, because I felt like mine was a little bit more laid back, and I really appreciated how he really just went for it, and especially at the end there when it kind of looked like the odds were stacked against him, and he really just kept it going and really like tried to power through it. And unfortunately it didn't work out for him, but you got to respect him for it.
Yeah, it sucked for him because the entire game after even at the beginning, it didn't seem like he had the Malolos really completely on his side. In his original tribe, he had like a smaller group in there, and then he comes out and he never really had a chance to like drive his own game. Everything was always at the hands of somebody else, which has to be incredibly frustrating. But he did go out there, he did play like as hard as he could, finding idols, really causing some serious drama at camp. It's a shame he goes in a double boot episode in this really strange 2-tribe thing, which we can talk about the season as a whole, what you're thinking about the twists and everything. But it was interesting that the people always say Julia Sokolowski turned 19 on the show, so like she doesn't get like full credit.
She doesn't count.
But the 2 18-year-olds here, like the 2 recent 18-year-olds going in double boot episodes, like what's with that? They just want to get you guys out of here. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. They're really just trying to move us out. But I'm probably one of the few people that actually liked the 2 like tribes of 5 twist. I actually kind of enjoyed it.
I was a fan of that too. I've liked it.
Yeah, because I see it going in either 2 different ways. I see it going the way that we saw it on TV, is where Malolo gets kind of on the wrong side of the numbers again, and we lose 2 people who are probably going to go already. It just would have been 2, an extra episode of them going. Or we get in a situation where somebody who was in, this majority alliance could end up going if the numbers worked out a different way. And I think it adds another element to the game where the people who are in the majority always need to remember to, extend the olive branch to the people in the minority. And I feel that doesn't happen a lot in Survivor. And it was something that Adam did a really good job of whenever he was in the majority, like after the Michelle boot. I remember him coming to me and like trying to even like keep that relationship going with me. And it's something where I think Survivor doesn't really test that a lot. And it's something that I'd really like to see if Dom and Wendell are kind of keeping those relationships with the, minority Malolo. Were they really building those relationships with Michael? It would have been interesting to see. We didn't end up getting to see that. But if Dom went on a twist like this, some people probably would have said it was unfair. I wouldn't say it's unfair. I would say that, you got to maintain those relationships with everybody in the game. So I think it adds another element. I kind of like it. I hope we see it again.
Yeah, I was reading Jeff's interview with Dalton Ross where he was saying that they'll probably do this in the future, just not in the near future. So I'm assuming that means it's not on 37 or 38. But we complained on the show because it wasn't exciting last week because it just didn't play out exciting. Like it just didn't get a chance to actually play out. So like I think that in the future it could work, and I think what you're saying is a good point. It makes the people on top have to actually have relationships, because we see it all the time. Like Boston Rob did a fantastic job in Redemption Island of keeping his relationships with every single person in that tribe. So if this would have happened to him, he would have survived it, like pretty much in any situation, because he really did make everybody feel like, yes, like I'm here and like you're going to the final with me. And I think Dom and Wendell have kind of done that, because if you look at who's out there, Kellen's always running to Dominic. Laurel and Donathan are really close with Dominic and Wendell, which we've seen. And then Sebastian, I don't know where Sebastian's at, but if he's like the only one who's going to vote against them, then like that's really not too bad. I mean, Chelsea and Dominic pretty much admit to throwing a challenge early on in the game to make sure that they can vote out Bradley. Like, that means they have some sort of relationship. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a good point. I think it's something that could be interesting in the future. You just hope that, like, in the future it actually plays out where if they ever split them again, it's a more interesting split, because this season's just really the wrong season to do it on.
Yeah, in terms of the split, that was just like the roughest 5-5 that you could have had.
Yeah.
I am glad. Oh, God.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I could see it working maybe, right after the first merge boot. So like a merge at 13 and then doing it at 12, like 6 and 6. Because like right after that first like merge boot, it can kind of get a little bit hectic and a little bit wild to see where things are going to turn out. So that may be a better way of handling it in the future. I don't know. Maybe something to think about.
No, that's 6 and 6 too.
Yeah, and everybody's been saying like the merge boot now has become like who's the safest boot, which like I guess this year it was Chris, so I guess everybody knew that it was was whatever. But so it does become like a really safe boot, and then it's like now the game starts to play. Well, you could throw in that added wrinkle where it's like, okay, now you got rid of the merge boot. Who you thought was the easy boot? Is that somebody who would have voted with you in this split tribal thing? I mean, I don't have a problem with them doing that in the future. I don't think it's like unfair. I just think that it was just boring last week because it was like Michael and Jenna go, and it was like Michael and Jenna were going to go anyway. Like you said, like Jenna was definitely going last week. Like there was no way she was surviving. And the way the split worked, it was the five of the 6 best people in the game were on one side, and then the 4 under-edited people in Donathan are on the other side. And it's like, what's going on? Which will. Since we got you here, everybody talking about under editing with you and Sunday. How are you feeling if you're Chelsea?
Let's hear your take.
Let's hear it. I want to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, it stings. It definitely is something that, coming right out of the show, especially if you're a big fan of the show, and I don't know if, how these under-edited players were like Chelsea and, some of the other Desiree, people who maybe not have gotten the best edits, whether or not they were big fans, but it definitely stings. It's something where the first few months after the show, it hurts, but it's something where you kind of look back on your experiences. And for me, I'm just happy to have gotten the experience. Editing, you can't control. I ended up getting 8th place. Everybody can't get a huge edit. It's not like I won the show. It's not like I came in, 3rd or 4th. It's something where I got out, in 8th place, and that's something where not everybody who gets out that early can get a huge, big, colossal edit, and that really, part of it plays into the personalities too. Some people just pop on screen more than others, and, you can't really help that. It's something where I'm glad I got the experience. I'm glad I got the opportunity to play, and hopefully they'll realize that too. Some people do, some people don't. Some people will hold a grudge for a while. I don't know. If I could tell them, I would say, just remember that you got to play the game. You got to play a game that very few people get the opportunity to play, and I'd be grateful for that experience.
And
it's probably the best answer you could have for
great.
it.
It's a great answer, and it's easy to say when Will's had 3 times as many confessionals as Chelsea up to this point. I mean, for as little as we got of you, when we were like making this point on our last podcast, it was like we saw so little of Sunday and so little of Will. Everybody wanted to call them the purple edits, and you guys had at least 3 times as many confessionals as Chelsea up to this point. That's crazy. That's really great.
Millennials Gen X was a pretty evenly divided season as far as confessionals went. I think
very well done.
Yeah, I think the editing was really well, and that also goes. I remember listening to your last podcast, and somebody brought up the point that some people who might have been under edited went early in my season compared to this season, where some of the people who would have been under edited may still be in the game. So that could definitely play a factor as well. But I think the editors definitely, try their best with every season they get, I feel like. But it's definitely weird how, I don't know if y'all follow Edgic, and I don't know if you really talk about Edgic on your show or not, but it's really interesting how with Edgic, it's really like 1 or 2 people, or pretty much this season, really just one person that really looks like the standout that person's going to win. So
and that's Dom, I assume, right?
Yeah.
It was going to be a Wendell or a Dom, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I mean, like Will would always say, Will, who we used to have on here, he would always say, he'd be like, we do Edgic, we just don't actually like do a chart and like read the chart, but like we're looking at the edit.
Freaks me out. Whenever I see all caps letters, I just have like a meltdown.
We'll avoid that one, but I'm not surprised that it's Dominic. I mean, we've been saying on the show, like I think Vaughn, who we had on last week, he was saying 100 times out of 100, Dominic wins this season. Like he was so confident Dominic is winning this season, and really, if you're watching it play out, like Dominic does look like he's going to win the season. If he does, he's going to be like a great winner because he's had a target. He hasn't gotten a vote yet. Him and Chelsea are the only two people who haven't gotten votes yet on this season. That's really crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah, he's the person where, like, early on, like, with all the pre-press and pre-interviews, he was the one person that if I was out there, I would have been most nervous about. He just seems like a very personable kind of guy, and he seems like he has the look, the voice, just the way he interacts with people that would really make me nervous to want to, work with him or anything like that, because he's just such a great personality that it would have really scared me to be out there on the island with him. And it doesn't surprise me at all. You give the guy a few days in the game and he was able to build all these relationships. It really doesn't surprise me that we're in this position. And Wendell has been a great TV too. I've really enjoyed watching Wendell on the show as well. So
Wendell's been
fun. Them as a duo, I could see them getting their own reality show. They're great together. I love the banner between them during the immunity challenge was a lot of fun.
It's like we need one of these. We need like a Survivor like couples edition where it's like Tyson and Jervis as the Coconut Bandits and Wendell and Dominic.
The Coconuts.
There you go. Hey, the Coconuts from last year with Joe and Mike. Like we could have all these. We could have all these like pairings of like survivors. Because I mean, it has been something like recently like that you've seen a lot. I mean, even on your season, Brett and Sunday weren't the best edited, but Brett and Sunday had like this relationship that was like, what is like, how are they having like this relationship? You just don't expect the two of them. So what are you thinking overall of Ghost Island before we do the rankings? Ghost Island, like where are you at? There's been 3,000 twists. There's been 3,000 twists. What do you think about all of them? What do you think about the island itself? What do you think about the show? What do you think about the season?
Yeah, I like the fact that there's a lot of idols and a lot of twists. It's definitely something that people rag on the show a little bit for that, but that is the era that we're getting into. We're getting into this new era where there are going to be a lot of twists. And I think if you're going to do it the way that they're doing it with kind of the historical take on it and bringing back these, old idols and these like items that have been haunted and kind of reverse the curse. Yeah, it could get a little cheesy at times, but at the end of the day, I kind of like it. I think it's the best way that they could have introduced this many idols and twists into the game without, oversaturating it in a way that just didn't feel natural. I guess this is the most natural way to do it. But at the same time, I feel like the season, it's like a middle of the road season. That's how I feel. I don't hate it as some people hate it, but I'm not like a super like big fan of the season. But the way I see it, like Survivor, any season of Survivor is better than like 95% of the rest of television. So I'm still like enjoying the season. I'm still watching it. I'm still a fan, but it probably will be around like 20th ranked in my list of seasons.
Yeah. Middle to middle bottom. Is kind of where I'm seeing it.
It's funny because like we were getting a lot for like a lot of crap for being really negative last week, and like the problem is like
we're trying to be positive. We're trying to be something. We're looking for it.
But like when you talk about this show for like an hour every time, I mean, we also got crap for saying Millennials vs. Gen X was great and for really enjoying it. So really, there's no winning. But I just think it's like when you're watching, you have to talk about it so much. You want it to be the best. And like we are at a point where like Alexa and I have to nitpick the show because it's such like a big part of our lives at this point where it's like
we're in too deep.
Like we have to. If we're going to come on here and talk for an hour, I could not pretend that I liked last week's episode. Like I just couldn't do it. So I think this season is interesting because it kind of went the reverse of last season, where this season the pre-merge was really interesting with really a lot of interesting characters. They all go home, and post-merge it's like, okay, it's the Dom and Wendell show, like a little bit of Kellen thrown in, a little bit of Laurel thrown in. And then on the other side, last season it was like there were forgettable characters in that pre-merge, even though there were some that were great. And then once they hit the merge, it was like, okay, like I actually don't know who's going to win this game. And it made for a little bit more interesting of a run. And you can say what you want about Ben's run at the end, but it made more interesting TV because you had your bigger players left. So actually having like a bad pre-merge almost, or like a more boring pre-merge might actually be better for the season because it means that you're keeping around, like on your season, you kept around the biggest players you could, except for Michaela, because you guys had to go and do that. But, I mean, everybody else, it's for the most part,
Yeah, I definitely think too it hurts that season 36 is coming after, some really good seasons of Survivor. I mean, I think 33, 34, and 35 are all really good seasons. So coming off of that, it's a hard season to take in after we've had some really good seasons back to back. And I do think, season 35 definitely had a great post-merge, like you said. So kind of coming right off of that, and also the high hopes that people had after the pre-merge of the season, it kind of, faltered a little bit. And I think people are harder on it because of that as well. Seeing such a great pre-merge and seeing characters like Bradley, who, I feel like was a great villain to the show, just a solid villain. And,
I'll give you the thumbs up on this one.
Yeah.
Finally, we get somebody come on here and defend Bradley with me. I get so much crap for saying that him going home ended the season.
So I did a power ranking on RHAP, and I ripped into Bradley a little bit because it was right after the episode where he was like ragging on the Malolo camp and how the Malolo camp was so bad. And I'm like, what is this guy doing? But after the fact, and after a few more episodes, he really won me over. I think he was a great villain. I hope to see him again one day. Great on TV. But losing people like him definitely made the season feel a lot less, powerful going into the merge because you didn't have characters like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not only that, he wipes out all the fan favorites. The early fan favorites he wipes out, and then he gets himself wiped out. So it's like we lost so many good characters because of Bradley. We really did. And I think it does hurt. I mean, when I'm assuming when Survivor's putting a cast together, they know who they'd rather see go far and who they'd rather not. They already know when they're putting this together, who's going to be their quieter characters, and maybe they'll be surprising, but they're not expecting Chelsea to be a Dominic, but they were also probably expecting Chelsea to not probably make it as far as she currently is, or if she was making as far as she is, maybe having a little bit more of a story because she had to really get in with somebody. It seems like not that she's being a coattail rider, but it just seems like her and Kellen, whatever Kellen said, Chelsea's just kind of been there doing that or has been in the dark on things. So it's we have no traction on her. So I don't know. It's hard to fault the editors, but man, there's some but exactly.
Here's the thing, though. If you're not getting any confessionals, there's definitely a little bit of something on the person too. You can fault the editors all you want, and I think you talked about the rice too and the lack of rice, and it looks like Chelsea's just exhausted, and that's something that
so skinny.
Yeah, and that's something where that could really play a big factor into it. And did you read? I think it was who was it that said it was recent. I have the article pulled up actually. It was Jenna. Okay, it was Jenna who just said about how they traded 20 pounds of rice or something for
really?
in their shelter, taken down. It was on the Hollywood Reporter. It was it was Wiggler that I think did it, and something about how they negotiated to take down the bed and shelter for 20 pounds of rice. Or something like that, which is why, because I thought I saw Michael eating a giant thing of rice, in the middle of the episode. And I was kind of confused about that. I'm like, where did they get all this food? So apparently they traded it, and hopefully maybe that'll give people a little bit more energy, and the edit will be a little bit more even going forward because now they have all this rice in their stomach.
I'm surprised they don't tell us that.
Yeah. I thought that would have been great to put on TV. I'm really surprised.
And they've shown it before, and it's always really cool because Jeff gives them a lot of crap for it.
Yeah, and it happened during the helicopter awards. So the episode, it would have been this episode then. So that's interesting.
Wow. Also, you brought up Jenna. I'm sure we've all watched that Ponderosa. That was one of the I guess it can't be Chris's because that was just too good. But that was the second best Ponderosa of the season. It was one of the better ones I've watched in recent memory. That was fantastic. I wish we got a glimpse of Jenna's personality on the show because she was really funny.
She was all over the place. It was hilarious. Her
one-liners. It's a good one. I would recommend her. Yeah, she's really quick.
Wait, Will, you haven't watched it yet?
I actually missed it. Yeah, no, I've watched quite a few of my caught up. Yeah, I'll go back. I'll rewatch that then. That seems
Yeah, make sure to watch it to the end. There's a good little 1-minute clip at the end.
Okay.
It's so good. It's Aqua by Survivor. It's amazing. Yeah, and I think the Ponderosa was so good. And I'm like, damn, we didn't see any of Jenna out on the island. And we did hear from Stephanie Johnson that pretty much everything that she said on the island was not graphic.
Appropriate for television.
Yeah, but especially for CBS. But I do think that's kind of interesting when you watch her on this season, or in Ponderosa. And she was her and Michael were hilarious. They were really funny together. She was ripping off one-liners and just comments that were sort of nowhere. That you were just what is happening? And then yeah, they do a commercial for a cologne or something.
It's Survivor cologne.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
And I had been saying, I'd been texting Phil about this. I think this all does boil down to the rice. No pun intended. But I remember Michael just in all of his confessionals, he just sounded kind of bored And I could never like fully get behind him because I felt like he just wasn't, I guess he just like didn't have like the Dominic or Chris type of confessionals. And then they put him and Jenna on Ponderosa and they put a couple cheeseburgers in them. And they are like the funniest duo on the island. So I really think that Rice, now that we're talking it out, I really think that Rice, or the lack thereof, really took a toll on this season.
Yeah. And if they're going to give them less rice, I mean, all it comes down to is like show us that they're getting less rice and like make that part of the storyline instead of giving them less food and then not even making it part of the storyline. Because now we're all sitting here going, okay, we're hearing the strategy talk, but it's literally the same lines over and over again. So which makes
hallucinating. They're so
hungry. Exactly. I'm telling you, Kellen is tying orange buffs around trees and trying to vote the trees off. I'm telling you, she's like she's completely lost her mind. So I guess Will, before we jump, the last one before we jump into this, Ghost Island, the island. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of those things where, you know, watching on TV, probably some of the magic is lost. But as a player and trying to like put myself on that boat, especially you know, when Chris went there in the middle of the night and everything, that probably was such like a rush, so exhilarating. And it probably adds something out there for the players that we as viewers just couldn't understand, like that kind of rush and mystery of Ghost Island. And it's something that even if I may not get it as a viewer, I'm glad it's there because I'm sure it added another element for the players that we can't even grasp on TV. So that's why I really enjoy it, and that's why I'm okay with it. It definitely doesn't translate on TV the way that I would like it to, in the way that I was hoping it would, but it probably adds something that, you know, adds a new element to the game that I enjoy and that I like.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. When we had Joe Mena on, he was talking about how like he wishes he got something like what Chris did. So I get what you're saying. Yeah. It's definitely like it's more interesting for the player, I guess. But then it's so disappointing when like they've done what, like 4 games or something. Like they haven't even done that many games, and this is episode 12 predictions. Like, and they've done like 4 games. That's like crazy. Like that's not much.
I think you brought up a good point that it doesn't translate very well because that Chris scene was so cool. I loved it. Like I wanted to know how they orchestrated it, like how he did it. And it was definitely exciting to watch, but I felt like there could have been more. I think that's something that's just really, really hard to translate to a viewer, like how Chris actually felt in the moment. But that one especially stuck out to me. I was a huge fan of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if we want to jump into the power rankings, I'll start with my number 1 while we're talking. Since we're going from Chris, I'll just say Dominic's my number 1, and he'll probably be my number 1 until the end of the season. It's kind of like, how's he ever going to go home? And if he does go home, it'll be in the finale, or he's going to somehow lose in like a Ozzy Yule type situation where they give it to Wendell. Not saying Wendell's playing a Yule type game. Got to jump ahead of people before they start yelling at me.
Or that Dominic's playing an Ozzy type game.
Yeah, exactly. Got to jump ahead of people before that. I'm just saying, like, you could have like your 2 best players in the final, and somehow like the one who people might think should win, like Ozzy played a great game at Cook Islands, and he loses. So that could be like a similar situation here. But Dominic is in your finale. If Dominic's not in the finale, then this season really is a lost cause, because that would mean that the one guy that we really, really know, and whether you love him or you don't, he is the one guy that we really know. He has been our narrator, and if he's not in the finale, it's like, who is in the finale? So he's got to be there. He's number 1. I don't see him going, in the next 2 episodes.
Yeah, definitely not. I have him as my number 1 as well, and I think he's either winning the game or like a much lower chance. Maybe he gets like 4th. I could see that maybe happening, and maybe like a Wendell or a Laurel win happens. But I think I'm probably like 80% sure he's winning the season. 20% maybe like the editors pulled a fast one on us and he ends up getting 4th place and he comes back on some redemption season or something like that, or second chance season. But no, I think at the end of the day, Dominic is 100% in the finale. Because like you said, it would be a lost cause of the season if Dominic's not in there. He is the king of the edit from my perspective, and I think from most people's perspectives. And yeah, plus he has an idol too. And I think the one thing that I like about Dominic is that he seems to have a correct amount of paranoia. If people are too paranoid, then that throws other people off. If people are not paranoid enough, then that is, also kind of an issue because you can end up getting blindsided. It seems like he has a really good amount of paranoia in this game where he can figure out like hey, Michael is lying about this idol, while Kellen was kind of freaking out about it. But at the same time, he's able to read that, hey, Desiree's lying to you, Kellen. Both things that Kellen ended up getting wrong. So Dominic seems to have a pretty good read on people, and I think with that kind of read and with the idol in his pocket, I don't think he's going anywhere.
And you actually, since you got to see it in firsthand, what do you think about them bringing back David's fake idol and Dominic finding it? Do you think he'll actually do anything with it? Do you think that it's like a good move for him to do anything with it? Or should he just like hold on to it and not plant it for anybody?
You know, I'm a little bit confused about it because I feel like we've reached a point in Survivor where if you find a idol, quote unquote, without a clue attached to it, you're going to know it's fake, right? So I don't know if they maybe gave the clue that David, like a realistic looking clue, along with the clue saying like, hey, this is a fake idol, it's not a real idol, because then maybe he could use it as a fake idol. But if he just puts this idol together and like tries to pass it off as a fake, and even puts like an old clue, like people, especially with this season where every idol relates to a past season, I don't see how it's going to work. I would just not use it. I think it's just going to put more of a target on your back where maybe they had a fake clue saying like, oh, this is David's old idol and it's regained its power when it really hasn't. Yeah. That would be a good thing to use, but they didn't show that. So I'm guessing that there isn't that kind of thing in play.
The problem with that too would be that would mean that the producers are literally lying to one of the players then by saying that here's a piece of paper that says you found a hidden immunity idol. Like then that person's gonna be like, what the hell do you mean it's not real? It literally says on this paper that this is a real idol. Like, I don't care. Like, where's like the postscript on here? Like, where's that? You know.
I think for anybody, Dom was the right one to get this because he was, first of all, he already has a fake idol that's 90% large shell. So this just like adds to his collection of things that he can wear on his neck at the final tribal council. But I wouldn't use it. I'd maybe like just stick it in my bag and put my real idol like maybe out in the woods. But I wouldn't use it, but I wouldn't put him past him to use it because he's already kind of played that game before.
Also, I think if Michael was still in the game, you use it. But you've gotten rid of Michael. Who's he got to use it on now? Like, it wouldn't be beneficial really for anybody in the game to find it because it seems like everybody's kind of like teamed up.
You know, I just thought of something about a way that maybe he could use it if he – and this is like a really out there idea. It just came into my head. But say he's trying to blindside Kellen and – Kellen, I assume, may be bitter if, you know, Dom tried to blindside. Maybe if Dom played the idol for Kellen and, like, convinced her it was real, but then it ended up being fake, Dom could be the whole, like, surprised, like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was a fake idol. Kellen ends up going home, and that would be a way to, like, buy her jury vote. So maybe he could use it from, like, a jury perspective to kind of, like, persuade, like, hey, I gave you an idol. I didn't write your name down, you know? Like, Wendell or Laurel, you know, had this whole plan to get rid of you. So
that's a good idea.
You can use it from that. Yeah. And it's like from that perspective.
That's like the Ben going undercover thing last year. Because like it's helping one person. Like that helps Dom and everybody else would like if he plays it for Kellen, obviously everybody else would have to like either like have some sort of idea or like it would almost make him look bad to maybe his alliance if he plays that for Kellen. Because they're like, what the hell? But if they were kind of in on it too, then that's something that could work. And it's like he's undercover. But like Joe said on our podcast last season, he goes, I think it's a terrible move that Devin let him do that because now Ben's getting all the credit. So like if other people in this alliance were to allow him to do that, that's going to make Dom look really, really good. And it's going to make all of them look really, really bad. You know, and they would call him out on it, I feel like, at the end. If they knew that he knew it was fake, they would call him out at Final Tribal Council. But Kellen, he was doing that to play up the jury.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about how this plays out at Final Tribal Council because word probably spreads. Like, people can count the votes because there are only 8 people left at this point. And also, does he, like, let's assume that nobody else, like, tells anyone at Final Tribal Council. Does he say to Kellen, actually, I double-crossed you, respect my game? Or does he double down on it until she votes for him to win, and then he tells her when they get back to the U.S.?
I think you got to kind of read the room in that situation and see what Kellen. If Kellen is already suspicious, then you tell the truth. But if she's not suspicious at all, then maybe double down on the lie. But I think that would definitely be. And also, I don't know if Kellen would be a bitter juror. I just picked her because I know that she's like a bigger player, and that you know maybe they'll be trying to blindside her at some point. But I don't. Yeah, it would really have to be like depend on the situation, kind of read the room situation.
I do think you're right, though. If anybody on this jury is going to be bitter, I do think it would be Kellen because Kellen's playing like a really aggressive game. And she's playing a loyal game, exactly. So whoever votes her out, she's going to feel really betrayed by it. Like, no matter what. Like, she believes, like you said, Dom is the one who's really good at reading people. Kellen has believed everybody. She believes everything everybody's saying to her. So, like, for her, like, I feel like she would be the one who's most likely to be bitter because it's like, why did you get rid of me? I thought we were friends. So, I could see that. Alexa, who's your number one? You haven't done
so to really just stray away from your guys' number ones, I also picked Dominic for pretty much the exact same reasons that you guys gave, but just to add one more thing, he had a confessional earlier. I think it was last week's episode where he said, I might need to get rid of Wendell. And that's the first time that we've heard anyone from this four, or really anybody like who's in a tight, loyal alliance, say, hey, I do need to get rid of my best friend. Like he's acknowledged that Wendell is as much of a threat as he is. And we haven't seen Wendell do that. So I think that puts Dominic a step ahead of him. And that's why I have him at number one. And then I have Wendell at number two. He's still got an idol. They're still a pair. And for some reason, people don't want to get rid of them.
Yeah, and Will, I'll assume I also have Wendell at number two. I mean,
yeah. I do as well.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
These 8 are going to be very similar.
I feel like this is an easy 8 power ranking right now. The only thing that could be different is maybe who we have at 7 and who we actually have at 8. Who we're believing is with Wendell and Dominic. I mean, Wendell has this idol, and he hasn't gotten as big of an edit as Dominic. But like, how's he going home? How is it going to happen? You know, does anybody have that?
Yeah. I think the only thing is the fire making twist. That's kind of the only thing that could like Will, like you said, the only way he doesn't really get to final tribal. I think that's just the fire twist because we don't see much camp life, and this isn't me complaining about camp life. It's just I don't know who's good at making fires and who isn't. So when it comes down to that, I really just don't know who's going to win because we were led to believe Devin was going to win it last time. And then Ben just knocked him out of the water.
Yeah. The other aspect about Wendell that I put was that going into this list before, because I actually binge watched these past few episodes this past week. I haven't been able to watch for a while. And going into thinking about the list, I knew who the 8 were. And I was going to put Wendell as number 1. But something interesting that I saw was that people kept targeting Wendell before Dominic. And I know a lot of people were thinking that it would be the other way around. And I started thinking about my own season and how people were throwing my name out before they threw Jay's name out. Mm-hmm. And I've realized this has kind of been a trend in Survivor, at least recently, where the power player, you don't go after the power player right away, but rather you go after the power player's closest ally. And that's something where, I know we're talking about 1 and 2 here, and both of them are probably safe, and I see them both going to the finale. But if I had to put, another reason why I have Dominic a little bit over Wendell is because Dominic's name hasn't really been thrown out as a let's get Dominic out tonight. It's been a let's get rid of Wendell to weaken Dominic. Yeah. So that's another aspect that I think separates the two of them a little bit.
Yeah, and Wendell, it's surprising because you would think people would. I guess Wendell is just a really good guy, and people think that they have a better chance to beat Dominic maybe because he's rubbed people the wrong way. Because you would think getting rid of Dominic would be easily the better move here because he's doing the most, and they all know he's doing the most. It's no surprise to anybody. So I think that's a good point, though. I mean, it's funny how that's become more of a trend because it's well, if they have an idol, if they have something, let's do it. And it doesn't seem like anybody's really thinking that they can get the person when they have the if they had an idol. They don't think they can actually blindside that well anymore, which is crazy. I don't think people believe that they can do it because you earlier said Game Changers was a good season, which I don't think I could disagree anymore. But early in that game, when they got JT with the idol, that's a great blindside. They really convinced him, and I don't think people think that they can pull that this late in the game just because I don't think they can round up enough troops. So, yeah,
it's definitely a big aspect to remember too when you have that leader. I think it's also an intimidation factor too. People I feel are a little bit intimidated by Dominic's presence of being kind of this leader and being the guy in charge, where Wendell is more of the likable character and maybe easier to approach. And I don't know, maybe that's just an assumption I'm making, but it seems to me based on the edit that people may be feeling Wendell is just that easier target to go to. And also it seems it maybe goes back to that paranoia a little bit. If Wendell seemed to be like a really calm, cool, collected player, maybe an easier person to blindside because he has an idol, where Dominic, who has been a little bit more paranoid, like I said, to a good degree, not too paranoid, but maybe more willing to play an idol if he feels nervous, where Wendell, I could definitely see getting blindsided with an idol in his pocket.
Well, there was one time early in the season where I was kind of surprised he didn't play it. He must have had really good connections because I thought for sure, I forget which tribal it was, but I thought for sure he was going to play the idol because I thought he was like definitely worried, and he didn't do it.
Who went home after Chris? I feel like it was that one.
Libby.
No, I don't. Then I don't know.
There was one though where it was like, I thought for sure he was going to end up playing it. I can't remember who it was. It might have been the Libby one. Maybe I don't know. I can't remember.
I think it was because wasn't Michael throwing out Wendell's name during that tribal? So it was between Michael and Wendell.
I think he got 2 votes. That
yeah.
I think from Michael and Libby.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I mean So I think it was that tribal because somebody played an idol. Mike, is that where Michael played the idol?
Yeah,
and then, Michael played the idol, and that meant that Wendell was it was either him or Libby, and he just had enough confidence that all the votes were going to Libby. So he really does have good relationships going on right now. I mean, for sure. It's just I don't know. I agree with you. I think he could get blindsided with it. I don't think Dominic gets blindsided with an idol because Dominic's just I think he's in control too. I think he knows he's in control. And I don't think that they could get 4 people to go against him right now. Who would the 4 be? I just don't see it happening. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
All right. Well, break the ice here. Who do you have at number 3?
Laurel.
Same.
Yeah. So do I. So
okay. Well, the reason why is because I think the edit has been playing up this whole, Dominic, Wendell, Laurel, Donathan alliance. I think it's definitely going to be a thing. It's been played up way too much for it to fizzle out. She's a solid player. I put her over Donathan because Donathan just played an idol, which could make him a little bit more of a target. And then plus, it seems like Laurel seems to be, I don't know, much level-headed and has really good reads on people. And maybe it's a little bit more of her edit, too. I feel like she's gotten the 3rd best edit of the post-merge. So it could be a little bit more of her edit being a little bit more positive than, say, Donathan's. And that's some of the reason why I put her at 3rd compared to 4th, which I do have Donathan at number 4.
Same here.
Yeah, so that's we have the same first 4, but I think it's obvious right now because the whole time it's been Navidi strong, Navidi strong, Navidi strong. That's what we've been hearing. That's what we've been seeing. But they've drawn so much attention to the fact that Laurel and Donathan are in tight with Wendell and Dominic. And Wendell is the one saying that. And Dominic is the one saying that. And it's not, and it's like they're going to have the other Navidis are going to have the wool pulled right over their eyes. They have no idea that that's happening. This week, Kellen is going to sit there and say, we got to get rid of Donathan or we got to get rid of Laurel. And Wendell's going to say no. And Dominic's going to say no. And they're going to go after a Navidi. It's going to happen, I feel like, because we've seen this is the only alliance that we've really gotten to know was this 4-person alliance.
Yeah, I agree with you. Especially, you bring up a good point that this whole theme has been Navidi strong, but 2 people have been able to sneak through. I am excited to see what happens between Laurel and Donathan separately because I think, as we've talked about, Laurel is definitely tighter with Dom and Wendell than Donathan is. And Will, like you just said, Donathan just played an idol. So, whether or not it was a correct or an incorrect idol play, he still played an idol and technically didn't have to. So people are going to come back and people who weren't taking him seriously are going to say, okay, this guy found an idol and he found it in plain sight. He found it in the middle of camp. He's playing now. So I feel like he's in a much more exposed position than Laurel is. I would really like Laurel to win. I think she's playing a really good game. But I think, as Vaughn mentioned in our previous power rankings, she is in a tough position because she wants to go to the end with 2 power players. And that makes me a little nervous for her. But that's why I have Donathan down at 4. I think he's okay. But I don't know. It's still going to be a little raw this episode just because he did play an idol. So that makes me a little nervous for him.
Oh, go ahead, Will. Go ahead.
Oh, the other thing about Donathan, too, is that he's been openly seen as this person who's willing to maybe make a move and kind of be in the middle. And I don't think he would ever do something like that, because I think at this point it seems pretty clear that that four-person alliance is going to move forward. But I don't think Laurel would make a move. We saw it with Desiree where, like, yeah, she had a split second, maybe, but then immediately ran back to Dominic and Wendell. And I think that if either one of those two are going to try to make a move and have it blow up in their face, kind of like a Desiree, it would be Donathan, who would maybe go to Kellen and try to make a move, and then Kellen would blow up his spot. I would never see Laurel doing something like that. I also don't see Donathan doing something like that. However, I see it more likely being a thing that Donathan would do it than Laurel, which is, again, why 3 and then 4 for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I can maybe see Donathan making a move around like 5 or 6 and then getting sent home then. But.
Yeah. I think right now that Donathan is going to be the one that the Navidi women target, but I don't think they're going to be able to get him. Like, I think that is who Kellen will say, we're going to get rid of Donathan tonight. We're not going to get rid of Laurel. Like, Donathan is the one. Plus, then they can keep the numbers where there's more women than men left. Which is something that Kellen, I think, has always wanted to do. But when I look at Donathan, Alexa, you were bringing up that he did just play an idol. Half the tribe does not know that. Half of this camp doesn't know that he played an idol because they came in second and nobody was able to talk to them. And Jenna can't tell them, hey, an idol just got played by Donathan of all people. So they're finding out when they get back to camp after booting Michael. So, like, there's going to be a lot going on. And this is kind of what I miss on this season that other seasons did so well, and this season has done like a really poor job of, is when people come back from tribal. We're not seeing as much of like
I love that stuff. The argument
and the scrambling. Like, we're not seeing as much of it. And like, you can't tell me this week after Michael just went home and Donathan played an idol that there's not going to be some interesting stuff going on when they get back to camp. So like, I don't know. Like, I hope that we get to see something there where it's like Donathan being like, crap, I played an idol, and people being like, when the hell did you have an idol? Like, Laurel's gonna find that out. Laurel, Wendell, and Dominic are all gonna find out Donathan played an idol. That's like a big deal. Like, he never told any of them that he had it. I guess Laurel knew because she watched him find it, but like, nobody else is gonna know, and they're gonna, and then he played it. Did he play it right? I don't know.
I think they have to show it, especially because Kellen played her advantage too, and there's going to be a lot of scrambling about that. So they have to. Some of the best conversations that happen and some of the best fights that happen right after tribal back at camp, and it's going to be explosive with what happened at both tribals. I don't see there not being a big conversation after camp. So we'll see, but I hope that there is a pretty heavy edit, like, just discussing what happened right after tribal, because between Donathan playing the idol and then Kellen's second vote, I think that could really hurt Kellen if she doesn't play it the right way and if she doesn't discuss it, because they don't know who did it, but they have to kind of, by process of elimination, figure out that it was Kellen, because I know Wendell and Dominic felt pretty safe going into that. So I don't know.
Yeah. And Laurel can't vote for herself, and it wasn't Michael, because Michael would have put votes on somebody else. So they have to know.
So by default, it's Kellen.
Yeah, like, they have to know.
And that was one, it had like the squiggly lines on it, so it was very clearly an extra vote. But that one, everyone was like, wait a second, there are 6 votes. Like, everyone was aware of what was going on. And I saw something on Reddit. What do you guys think? So it said Michaela on it. What if she voted for Michael and just like crossed out that A? Then it's like not as obviously from Kellen, but Kellen thought that Michael had an idol, so she wasn't going to vote for him. But I thought that could have – I felt like that was a missed opportunity. It might have been worth throwing her game out the window just for a really good picture.
Yeah, lose the game so that us fans can be like, wow, she just crossed off the A. Nobody will ever know.
Like, oh, my God, it's so sneaky. And then she did squiggles on it.
Yeah, and she still went home. No, I mean – yeah, if she would have voted for Michael, but if she votes for Michael last week, then really there's no point in playing the extra vote, because she was using that to make sure that if Michael played an idol, she was safe. And people were saying like, all Michael had to do was vote for Laurel and stuff. Like, that was never going to happen. That was just like never good. That wasn't even like a thought. I mean, I was reading his ex interviews and he's like, yeah, it stings, but like, I wasn't even thinking of that. Like, because I don't even think that he was confident. I think he was thinking maybe we can pull one over on Kellen or pull one over on Wendell. I know he voted for Wendell, but maybe he was thinking in that type of tribal. I mean, everybody got a vote. So who knows what could happen.
He's been gunning for Wendell for a while. Now that you just said it out loud, he's like voted for Wendell pretty much every tribal council, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he's aware.
Yeah.
I thought the way the extra vote was going to work was how I believe didn't Dan Foley have to announce I'm going to use my extra vote before they ended up voting or something like that? Because I thought maybe if Kellen did that, that might tip off Michael. But Kellen didn't have to do that. Kellen just had to pull it out secretly, which I thought was kind of a missed opportunity because maybe having to announce it might have alerted Michael. Oh wait, there might be another plan here. Maybe I should switch my vote.
Yeah, because it says that I'm playing an extra vote tonight. Yeah, that's a big deal. I don't think Dan Foley had to announce it. I think he just did.
That's fair. Yeah,
he probably didn't need to make a stink about it.
All right, so number 5, I go Angela, and maybe we differ finally, guys. Maybe finally.
But I don't have Angela, so at least I'm out.
Yeah. Okay. Good. This is perfect. All right. So I have different power rankings. This is great. My reason for putting Angela here is because I think that everybody thinks she is so unthreatening that Kellen could go, or like you said, Will, they go after the person's closest ally. So that would be Chelsea. And then Sebastian is kind of just an island right now. I don't know. Maybe he goes because they're we like Kellen. We want to keep Kellen around. Let's get rid of Sebastian. So he's out of here. But I think Angela sticks around this week because she doesn't have a tie to Kellen. She doesn't really have a tie to Chelsea. So if they want to get rid of Kellen or if they want to get rid of Chelsea, that's what they'll do. If they're scared Kellen has an idol or if Kellen wins immunity, they'll get rid of Chelsea. Why would you get rid of Angela here when bringing Angela to Final 5, that's a perfect errand from Token Chains, where it's hey, let's actually use her, Donovan, and let's get rid of Dominic and Wendell right now. Then we can go to the Final 3 with Angela. Or even the other way around, they could say, wow, we could probably end up losing here to Donovan, or we could probably end up losing to Laurel. And if, maybe that's how they start thinking, because Donovan does have a story behind him and Laurel is playing a good game, and they say, let's bring Angela with us. Angela is the one you want to bring with you, I feel like. She had that one really good episode where I was like, damn, I like this girl. And then she just vanished again. But Chelsea and Kellen, you can't do that with, because they're firmly Navidi strong, which means they will never work with Donathan and Laurel. And that means they won't be a part of your group of 4. And Donathan and Laurel have no reason to keep them around.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I went a little bit of a different route. I had Kellen as my number 5 because originally I was thinking, oh, Kellen's the biggest threat. She might just be the one that's targeted. She might be going home this week. But the way that I see it, and I talked about this before, is that why target the biggest threat when you can go after that person's right-hand man or right-hand woman and go after their closest alliance member. And that's why I feel like Kellen just isn't going to go this week. The other factor, too, is the edit. I don't think that somebody with an edit like Kellen, who has had a pretty sizable edit, is going to go right now when we have people who have received no edit whatsoever. It's just, we're not going to go into the finale with a bunch of people who haven't received a good edit. I think Kellen is going to make it to the finale and then be one of the first few people at the finale who's gone. And that's why I see her definitely sticking around this week. I don't see her going. I also think that the other 3 people that I have on the bottom just are bigger, easier targets. Or maybe not bigger targets, but easier targets to go after because they don't have that kind of connection to Dominic or Wendell. It could be a little bit of an emotional aspect too. You've been out there on the island for 30-something days with these people, and it seems like Dominic and Wendell do have a little bit more of a connection with Kellen, and they know they're going to have to target her eventually. But are they going to want to do it now when they can get rid of somebody who they may not have as close of a connection with? That emotional stuff, it doesn't play a primary role for most players, but it could definitely play a secondary role. So I could definitely see that being another underlying factor to keeping Kellen this week.
And here's what I'll say, and I don't want to jump I mean, everybody's going to know who's at the bottom of my power rankings anyway, but I think that, what you're saying there, Chelsea and Sebastian have to be the next 2 boots. Because even in your season, Brett was, visible, and then he kind of disappeared for a little bit, and then he came back, and they gave him enough of an edit more than you and more than Sunday to make it, justifiable that he got, 5th place in that game. They justified that he was in the finale. Ken and Hannah both got screen time because they made the finale. You and Sunday just missed the finale, so it was we can give them less. We don't need to give them more screen time. We can get away with it. And I feel like Chelsea and Sebastian hitting the finale is like, what? Like, how? Like, that used to happen. I mean, we did see that in like way back in Redemption Island when Natalie Tenorelli had like 7 confessionals or something going into the finale. Like, she didn't have anything. Troyzan didn't have much in Game Changers, but everybody also always forgets that Troyzan had a huge edit at the beginning of that season. It just vanished once the merge hit. Because when he was on that Green Tribe finding the idol and all of that, like, that was big news. They gave him a lot of time there, just like they did with Ken in your season. Chelsea and Sebastian have never had big time. They've never had like these big moments or screen time or anything. So to me, it's like, if Sebastian and Chelsea aren't the next 2 to go when you have a 6-person finale and we've got at least 1 episode of Angela, that would be really surprising.
Yeah, you bring up a good point with Angela being the only one who's had an episode. I think like there will be one very invisible person who makes it to the end. One, because like there are only 5 people with edits left, and it's going to be a 6-person finale, so that just has to happen. But you do bring up a good point. I differ from both of you. I have Chelsea at number 5. So this is where we all go our own way. I'm still super nervous for her. I think this very easily could be her week. But in a secret confessional, which is how I learn about what Chelsea thinks about this season, she said that she knows that she's on the bottom. She knows that I don't know if target's the right word, but she knows that people are going for her. And she and Dom are a lot tighter than we're being shown. And so I think she can work with Dominic if Dominic wants to pull a fast one on Wendell or get a Donathan or a Laurel out. Chelsea will be there for him because they have always had something. They've just kind of been on like different ends of this Navidi spectrum. So I like Chelsea's position just because of her connection to the strongest player in the game right now. But I'm still very nervous for her from an edit perspective, and also because she is really close with Kellen. And she and Kellen weren't even in the same tribal council last week. And so I think that really threw off their relationship. And I don't know if Kellen has the pull that she used to have.
I mean, do you almost feel like this episode could be like a reset? And like, that's why like one of these people didn't get a big edit. But like, you know, you always see this where like last week we had Michael finally go home. They get rid of like one of the biggest threats in the game to actually win the game. If he could have somehow gotten there, it would have been insane. Like, they would have had to give him the money at that point because he was never on top. He literally had to work his way from the bottom every time. So when you look at that, now you come into this final 8. And Kellen might be saying this is an easy Laurel or an easy Donovan, but everybody else could like just kind of take it and say, you know what, let's get rid of Sebastian. Let's get rid of Chelsea. Let's get rid of somebody kind of easy this week so that it's like a reset. And if they were to get rid of Sebastian or Chelsea, that would wake up Kellen to it. But like Alexa said, Chelsea does have a relationship with Dominic, at least in some way. So I feel like this week could be like a Sebastian goes home and like we really don't know why, other than like it was like the Haley boot where it was just kind of easy and they needed a second because Dominic and Wendell didn't want to get rid of one of the 2 Malolos, and Kellen was so set on it, but Dominic and Wendell also didn't want to get rid of Kellen yet. Like, I feel like it's like whatever they're going to choose probably, but I just feel like this could be like if Sebastian goes, we don't really know why he went, but at the same time, like there's no real purpose to keep Sebastian around at this point.
Yeah, I definitely think that could be the kind of scenario that we end up seeing is just kind of a Sebastian go home this week for whatever reason, and then maybe even out the edit a little bit, hopefully, fingers crossed, and maybe give everybody else a little bit more of an edit while he just kind of fades out or something like that. Maybe do that to another person, but I don't know. It's something where it's strange to have this many people left who don't have that big of an edit going this close to the finale after a double elimination. That's why I thought maybe, like going into this week, I thought maybe Michael might be okay because I thought 2 people who weren't that big of characters might be going. So,
well, and that was the thing last week in our rankings. None of us had Michael lower than 8. Like Vaughn had him in 8, I had him at 7, and Alexa had him at 7. So we were not expecting him to be one of the 2 boots last week because of how big of an edit he had. Like, and this is a guy who, yeah, he played the idols and everything, but they didn't necessarily need to give him as big of an edit as they did because they really made it seem like it was all about like Michael's comeback and the Malolos are somehow going to take down the Navidis, which still makes me think that Laurel and Donathan will get the best of Kellen at some point. They will last longer than Kellen because they need to hang around because we've seen so much of this, like Malolo is going to overcome that somehow. Like we've seen so much of that early on. I was so convinced that Bradley and Kellen were going to go home before Brendan and Stephanie Johnson, or at least before like most of them. And now every single person who was on that tribe is gone. Like, so I was really expecting the Navidis to lose to them, but I think that because of how like arrogant and the Navidi strong they are, I think that they're going to miss that Laurel and Donathan were actually playing with these other guys, and they sneak in and they go further than Kellen does. And that's like kind of your full arc of Kellen on the season.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. I think one of the reasons why, because you brought up the point of Michael getting a big edit, I think the reason he got a big edit was because he was the only potential foil to Dominic. And now that he is gone, like you said, maybe a Kellen will become that new foil. And it's something where they need somebody else to kind of challenge Dominic now that Michael's out of the picture. So we could definitely see that happen for Kellen, or we could see the rising of a new character as the foil. But there needs to be something. Otherwise, the season's just going to be a steamroll, and I don't think the editors want that to happen either. So we'll see.
No, and Laurel has been built up slowly in these last couple episodes, which makes me think that she's like the one that they're trying to say she could possibly knock off Dom. At 6, I have Kellen. I was gonna put her at 8, and then I like completely did like a 180 when I just said the whole thing about Sebastian and Chelsea like have to be the next 2 boots. I still think Kellen has a very good chance to go home this week because of where she stands, and because like they almost seemed like they were ready to get rid of her last week, but it's Michael. Like, so why would you do that? Like Michael even said in his next interview, Kellen never asked to see the idol, which is crazy.
That's bananas.
That's crazy. So I think though that Kellen's gotten such a big edit and is such a big character from like original Navidi and all of that like for her to go now and not make the finale, that would mean Chelsea or Sebastian sneaks in. And I just don't see that happening. I just don't see Chelsea or Sebastian making it in there. And if they do, like, I don't know. To me, it's just like, that's like, if both of them were to make the finale, it's like, oh my God, that's like 2 wasted spots. Like we know neither of them are going to win. But I don't know. I just feel like we just talked it out, and I'm really like thinking like, you know what, Kellen's actually going to make it through. So I put her at 6.
Yeah, I have Angela at 6, and that putting Angela at 6 is really just kind of a gut reaction for me. I go back and forth. One episode, I like Angela. The next episode, I don't like Angela, and I really don't know how the editors want me to feel about her. But I know that she has some sort of edit, and I could see her getting higher than Sebastian and Chelsea. The other aspect too, looking at it from a more strategic standpoint rather than an edit standpoint, I could see them being a little bit afraid to go after Angela because she did just go to Ghost Island recently. So that could be a factor where they think, oh, maybe she does have an advantage. Maybe she tries to play that up a little bit. We have seen, I think it was the Merge episode where Angela did show a little bit of strategic prowess where she, I think was like, I forget exactly what she was trying to do, but like confuse people or like she had a few strategic confessionals. I forget what her actual strategy was, but it's more than Sebastian and Chelsea. So yeah. I think that it's just a little bit more to put her a little bit above. I could see her maybe getting like 7th place and maybe just missing the finale, but I also don't see her getting 8th when we have Sebastian and Chelsea, who are both very under-edited characters. I think one of them has to go before we get to Final 7, and then maybe one of them will sneak into the finale. But
yeah, because otherwise, really, next week, your drama is going to be between – if Sebastian and Chelsea both survive this week, that means your drama next week is like – which one of them is going to go home. And like, that's crazy. Like you can't build an entire episode based around Sebastian or Chelsea going home.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have Angela at number 6 also. And it's in part because of the edit, but it's actually more because of what episode we're about to get. We're about to get the family visit. And I feel like Angela had her big like coming out party a couple weeks ago. I feel like this is going to be another really big Angela episode because what we know personally about Angela is a lot of family content. And a lot of like, she doesn't have any friends as a result of recently going through a divorce. And so I think this is going to be her episode. I don't know who her loved one is, but it wouldn't make sense for us to have this really, really emotional episode of Angela and then to immediately lose her. But I have her low because I don't know who she's allied with and we don't know who she would have voted for recently. So I still have her low, but I don't think she's going to go home. She'll probably go home next week. But really, for me, that's a result of the fact that it's a family visit. I think this is going to be a huge episode for her.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that. This was the family visit this week. I mean, we always kind of do this. Like, is there anybody who kind of benefits from a family visit, like in terms of like garnering favor with maybe other survivors? Like they have like a really emotional moment. I know Millennials vs. Gen X had like one of the better family visits in recent memory. It really did. with Adam's whole storyline and Jay's storyline and Zeke's big moment, and like especially like once you like pull back the layers on that, you're like, oh my god, this like moment is incredible. David had a big one, and Willem, obviously, you were you know what it was like. You were on the island. But you have these big moments, and like I don't think it really did anything in your season until later when Adam was able to talk to Jay. And when he said, like, you actually don't understand, like, how much you just did for me and my brother. But, like, do you see anybody on this season maybe gaining a little bit of favor, like, to survive another week? Like, is this why Sebastian goes home? Sebastian got no edit, and he goes home in the family visit because, like, he's just kind of like the guy who's like, yeah, family's here. Like, not as, like, emotional as, like, let's say as like a Angela should be, or maybe a Dominic who's been talking about his family the whole time, or Wendell who's been talking about his family the whole time, So what do you think?
Yeah, from an edit and TV perspective, I think you hit it right on the dot. You have people like Dominic who have been talking a lot about family. Angela's been talking about family. Those people are probably safe. They're probably not going to go. From a, survivor standpoint, somebody who's played, somebody who went through the family visit, it affects people like on a very deep level to the point where most of the people I've talked to have said it negatively affected them. It's something that I even personally feel like in my own experience, it's something where I think that was the moment I had going into the game, all these like fan checkpoints that I wanted to reach. I wanted to reach the swap. I wanted to get to the merge. I wanted to get to the family visit. Once I hit the family visit, the last checkpoint I had was winning $1 million. So I feel like I played too quiet up until then. And then I was like, okay, now I'm here. Now I'm ready to play this big game. And I end up getting voted out the next episode. Yeah. So that's something where I feel like it affects people differently, but most people I've talked to, it affects them in a very, very negative way because people, it's like a colliding of worlds. You are on this island for so long and you don't really think, you think about your family, but you don't see them. You can't actually, give them a hug. And then you see them and they come into this world and it's like this unimaginable experience, and it's happy in the moment, but then when they leave again, it's like this incredible emotional like toll that it takes on you, and you don't even have the physical energy to deal with that kind of thing, let alone the emotional energy. So it's something where I always am interested to see after a family visit how all like the characters are going to react, or all the players are going to react, because it really does shake up the entire game in a way that I think a lot of people don't even think about. And it's interesting to see who kind of has those moments where they maybe get a spark and try to make a big move right after an event like this, or who maybe gets a jump in their edit after an event like this. We may see an Angela episode. This may be her time where she really awakens and becomes a force in this game and maybe does end up flaming out and getting voted out. But it definitely shakes up the entire game and adds another layer that these people who've been living on an island for 30 days haven't had. And it's another emotional aspect. And people like Dominic, who have a family, it's going to be interesting to see how he reacts. And obviously, because of the great edit that he's been receiving, we can assume that he thrives on it and that he uses that to kind of motivate him through the end. But for other people, like an Angela, we might see that kind of negative reaction where it may end up actually hurting her. So it'll be very interesting to see the confessionals that come out of it and the gameplay that comes out of it. Because even if people aren't saying, oh, I'm making this move because the loved one visit just happened, it's an underlying factor that may even subconsciously be affecting people. I know it was subconsciously affecting me, as well as, some other players out on my season as well. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'll kill my power rankings then. I'm telling you, from talking here, I've convinced myself. I changed around my bottom three as we were talking about. I'll put Chelsea at 7 and Sebastian at 8. Because like Sebastian's like story early on was like his relationship with Chris, then that went away, and then it was his relationship with Jenna, which like all of a sudden meant nothing. Away. Yeah, like meant nothing. And now I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, like this guy hasn't done great with relationships. How fitting would it be for him to go in the family episode? Like we haven't seen emotional content from Sebastian at all. So like this is the episode where he goes home. Like Chelsea had that moment early on. One of her only confessionals was her like crying, drinking coffee, and being like, this reminds me so much of home. And like, I think this could be such a high for her. And like you said, such a low immediately after. But I feel like if we don't hear from Chelsea here on Wednesday night, then that would be a little surprising because one of the only things in her story so far is I miss home. So like, here we go. Like, let's get you there.
Give it to us. Like, give us something good.
Give me a confessional here, Chelsea. So like I could see something like that happening here. And, it just Sebastian goes home. He's funny. Like he was fine TV. Like he's not a great character because he didn't get enough moments. But like what we did get was likable of Sebastian. He was never going to win Survivor, but he was still like a likable guy. He was kind of fun to watch play. And yeah, he goes home in 8th place and it's kind of like kind of like a forgettable, like, wait, what was the name of that guy? You know what I mean? Like you kind of have that moment where you're like, who is that? So I think this could be Sebastian's time. And the reason I put Chelsea below Kellen is what you said. People tend to go after the first person, the right-hand person instead of going after the leader. And that is absolutely Chelsea. So I think that she could go home this week and Chelsea just can't make the finale. I mean, I'd be really surprised if Chelsea makes a finale because pretty much everybody who hits a finale gets at least a little bit of a storyline. And she just hasn't had one. So that would be really shocking to me.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to did Aubrey get a little bit of an edit in Game Changers? Because I just remember her getting like nothing at all. And I know that she made the finale.
Not really.
She did though. I mean, Aubrey, I think, had it a little bit more right around the merge. She started to pick up a little bit because she wanted to make things happen, but just wasn't able to make anything happen.
Yeah, no one wanted to play with her.
Gotcha.
I think it was around then. Hang on, let me see if I can pull it up here on Sucks. Do people still use Sucks? I do.
Confessional counts, honestly.
It's like the only thing it's good for because
only thing.
Sucks like was literally Reddit before Reddit existed, and now it's like
whenever I go on Sucks, I just have like a freak out because its web page looks like it's from the early 1900s when websites didn't even exist, and I just like freak out and have to X out of it.
Yeah. And I laugh though because you can tell that people are moving away from Sucks and now going over to Reddit because like the people commenting on Reddit are getting so much more negative. It's definitely the Sucksters, like 100%. All right, where's Chelsea? Or not Chelsea? God, Aubrey, I apologize. I just called you Chelsea.
Wow, that was a slip.
Well, up through the 11th episode. See, this is surprising. Up through the 11th episode, which she had 13 confessionals. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, that's more than like. I still have it written down right here. That's more than you had, Sunday had, Joe had, Purple Kelly, Whitney, Zoe, and there's probably many more people too.
So literally didn't have 13
professionals going into which isn't bad. Because that's what it was. She had a confessional almost every episode. There were only up to that point, she'd only not had a confessional in one episode, but she was getting like one confessional every episode. It wasn't like she was getting multiple confessionals. So that's what kind of threw everybody off. It was like more disappointing. I mean, Troyzan had a little bit of a story going into that. He actually had the least amount. He only had 8 going into the 12th episode, but he had so many early on when he was finding the idol and all of that stuff going on. So, okay, well, yeah, I'm looking at that. I would just be really surprised if like Chelsea hit that without having like any type of storyline. I mean, that would be really, really shocking.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm still going to stick to my guns on this and have 7 Sebastian and 8 Chelsea. But I could definitely see it being flipped. It's really just kind of a gut reaction. I could see maybe the coffee scene about her, like talking about her family and missing home. I could see that maybe being her reacting negatively to the loved one visit and maybe trying to make a move then and maybe kind of having it blow up in her face or something where maybe something emotional happens and she kind of breaks down and can't, ends up being the target. But at the end of the day, one of those two is going. I think it's very clear one of those two has to go. Sebastian just has received too little of an edit. Strategically, I think he seems like a very likable guy. I think people like him. I could definitely see them being like, let's just get rid of him now because he's too likable of a person to keep around. But at the end of the day, one of those two is definitely going, regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I really was like sold that it was going to be. I was really sold that it was going to be Kellen this week, and like now that we sat here and talked about it, I'm like, you know what? I don't think so. Like, she's just too big right now on the show. She really is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will meet in the middle with you guys because I have Kellen at number 7 because I really do think she has a chance to go home. I know, like I'm now trying to turn off my edit brain and just accept that like this is going to be a 6-person finale, but there's like 2 people who can win this. So even though Laurel has a good edit, like I'm kind of just denying myself. I don't think Laurel's going to win because I think Dominic or Wendell are going to win. And I feel like I am like very guilty of this, but I want Laurel to win and I would like Dominic and Wendell to win. But realistically, I just don't know if Laurel can win because of everything else that we've seen of the other 2. So going back to Kellen, I think she's in a really tough position. Like Michael had a great edit. Stephanie Johnson had a great edit. Bradley had a long-standing edit. And they all went home earlier than expected. And I think Kellen, they're playing her up to be very crazy and very paranoid. And I think they're chopping up a lot of conversations. But in the preview too, they have her like kind of stomping her feet and like getting thrown a hissy fit. And the previews this season have been pretty telling with who goes home. So I am buying into that a little bit. But I just don't know what pull Kellen has anymore because I don't think Dominic and Wendell need her. And I don't know if what her and Chelsea can do. I don't know if she's ever spoken to Donathan before. So I think she's in a tough position, but I still have Sebastian at number 8. I think the content that we got from him early on was really fun. And I wish they just kept giving him one confessional to like talk about some candy and then relate it to strategy and move on. Because it added like a lightness to the season that I don't think it has anymore. There's no goofiness, and I feel like there kind of was early on, and I think it was a result of him. And so I don't know, they took him away for whatever reason. They took him away for more like Dominic and Wendell talking about strategy, but I don't know, I think he's gone. I don't really know what his deal is. He was like the one who spearheaded getting rid of Jenna, and in her exit interview she said they're in a fight right now, which is a little crazy because of how this vote went down.
I still feel like she's being sarcastic. I don't know.
I really hope so, but either way, I think it's hilarious. Like I envision them watching the show together, and then he's like, "Yeah, we got to get rid of Jenna," and she just looks over to him and is like, "What the heck?" I still think Sebastian's going home though.
I just want to draw actually attention to one thing, and as Alexa, I was listening to you. I swear. See, I even commented, but I was reading through the confessional charts because I wanted to see if anybody had like not had a story. So. The only other person who had as few confessionals through 11 episodes as Chelsea was Brett and Samoa. I mean, Samoa is notoriously the worst edited season ever. I mean, we all know that. But he had 3 confessionals through 11 episodes. Then he got 1 in the 12th episode, 3 in the 13th episode, and then 5 in the finale. And so maybe, like, I guess, like, this was the episode, like, the episode coming up right now would be the episode where Chelsea, like, gets, like, her one little moment where it's like, hey, I'm still here. She survives that week. Then the next week she goes on and she gets a bigger story. And then the finale, she's like the only hope somehow. Because that was literally what Brett was. So like Chelsea, the problem is like Chelsea doesn't have that like David versus Goliath of like, I'm going to take down Russell. Like there's no bad guy like Russell to like build up Chelsea storyline like they did with Brett's, at least in that finale. I mean, Brett had 5 confessionals in the finale, and up to that point, he'd only had 7 for the entire season. And like we're supposed to think he could actually beat Russell in that last challenge. Like, come on, it would have been a Mick Natalie and Brett final 3. Like, come on, get out of here. But so that's really the only person who he had the same amount as Chelsea up to this point, and then got 8 or 9 in the last 3 episodes of the season.
Yeah, that's an important factor to mention too, because it has been a weird season as far as editing goes. So you never know. Kellen could go if this is kind of the editors throwing us off the scent a little bit. It definitely could be a Kellen boot. Just based on precedent, though, I would say Sebastian or Chelsea. But you never know. It could be some kind of like different editing style that we haven't seen before. Kellen could go, Angela could go. That's always up for a possibility. I just definitely don't see the top 4 going, but any of the bottom 4, it could happen. You never know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny. We had the same top 4, and like, I just don't see how like really anybody could disagree with those. I mean, I feel like most people, if they were making power rankings this week, that would have to be your top 4 because we've been told that alliance is going to work.
Yeah, it's not like in Tocantins where that like Exile Island Alliance, and then it ended up like fizzling out of nowhere, and we'd never heard of it again. This has been pushed and pushed and pushed every single episode for a very, very long time. So yeah, no, I see it working. It has to work at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's all of the power rankings right there. I mean, There you go. There's our 8-person power rankings. Will, I knocked out the survivors last week in the eliminator game. Alexa, who would he even have to pick from anyway? Well, I don't know if you were familiar with this, but it could be just like
pretty much like an NFL survivor pool. Like you pick one person to survive each week, and you can't pick them a second time. So for the guests, the only people left were Dominic, Kellen, and Chelsea.
So I have to pick one that will not be going this week?
Yeah. Well, we might as well. I mean, we might as well.
Why don't you go for it?
Yeah, why not? Because I picked Michael last week on the survivors' behalf because Vaughn was actually on our podcast, but then he went home but it's like, you know what? You guys get a second chance here because it was me and I've already knocked myself out. So I've actually lost twice. We'll count it as 2 losses. So what is it? It's Chelsea, Kellen,
Dominic, and Kellen.
So wait, now if I pick Dominic though, could the next person not pick?
They would only have Chelsea and Kellen.
Also, you are the only person we've had on who has even considered the person after them. So the fact that you asked that is very
really funny.
Because I'm tempted to pick Kellen now because I don't want the next person on after me to be, in a rough position here. So but then again, if Kellen goes, that's going to look awful. I'll go for Dom. I'll risk it. I'll go for Kellen. That way, the next person will have Dominic next week.
Yeah, wow. See, I went for Michael last week because I was like, if he makes it, let's see. And I was like, whoever comes on next, we had known it was going to be you, but I'm like, if I were to take Dominic last week, which would have been the safe thing, and then Michael goes home, and then Chelsea's going to go this week, you're literally left with just Kellen, and then it's like, okay, now you guys are out because you ran out of people. So at least you guys have a shot to make it to the finale here, and it's funny. I think when we did this with Troyzan, he was like, I'll just pick whoever's the safest. Why am I going to? Yeah, I think he did, right? He picked Wendell. So when you saying I kind of. I'm thinking about everybody else here. That's a shocking move there because everybody else was not thinking about you further down the line.
Yeah.
They just didn't want to be the one.
Got to help the Survivor team, Got to help us move forward. Yeah.
Someone's got to do it.
Just to give you an idea, the first person picked by Adam Klein was Sebastian. And Sebastian's still in the game. So
okay.
There you go. So that's that. Vaughn picked Laurel, I saw.
Damn it. He's gonna beat me. So I have 3 options left. I have Sebastian, Kellen, and Wendell. So this is not great.
God, I feel like you have to take Kellen.
I feel like I'm gonna pick Kellen.
Yeah, because if you pick Wendell and Sebastian goes home, you're done.
Yep, I'm going with Kellen. That's what's happening. Everything I just said about her 20 minutes ago is completely wrong. I think she's in a great position. She's Nvidia strong. There's still, it's a 6-2 advantage in Nvidia over Malolo. I don't see how Kellen goes home with this week. You heard it here first.
There you go. I also lost on Stephanie Johnson this year, Will, so I don't get the pick. Unfortunately. So you guys get to do this one on your own. I'm just sitting over here pretending that I know what I'm talking about. So Will, we finish that out. Do you have anything else? Do you have anything else you wanna leave us with? Talk about, say
takes.
Anything? Any hot takes?
Give us some hot takes.
I feel like, honestly, every time I watch Survivor, I want to get back out there right away. And it's one of those things where it really takes you back. So it's great. I wasn't able to watch, keep up. And I had to binge watch 5 episodes this past week. And it was a really, really fun experience, watching back to back to back like that. And
maybe it's a good binge season.
It actually, I think, honestly, it probably is a better binge season. I think on a rewatch, I think people may be a little bit higher on it. Maybe that's why I like it a little bit more, because I didn't have to wait a week to hear about it. I also was spoiled to every single boot, so I knew who the final 8 were before. So I kind of knew what was going to happen, but I don't know. I overall think this season it probably will be better on a rewatch. If that has any indication, I think hopefully within a few years people will like it a little bit more than they like it now, because I've heard a lot of negative things, but I don't know.
I will say I think most Survivor seasons are better on a rewatch, because when you have it's like anything. I mean, it's like Breaking Bad is better when you binge watch it than if you just watch it week to week.
It's a fantastic binge watching show.
Yeah, you have to binge watch that, though. It makes it a better show, because anytime there's a weak moment, you're just like, oh, okay, but remember that cool thing that happened? And that's like Survivor. I mean, you go back, I could binge watch. I was watching Karamoan the other day, and I was like, wait, do I like this season? I was convincing myself, no, don't be dumb. But you're watching it, and you're like, okay, like Francesca goes home, and then you watch the second episode, and it's in the third episode, it's Allie and Hope going home, which means nothing. But at the same time, you're like, when you could just watch them, boom, 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 it's like, all right, they went home, but like I'm on to the next one. It doesn't matter. It doesn't feel like as much of a dud. Like when you're sitting there watching Caramoan the first time, you're like, okay, Allie went, and then Hope went. Like, what am I watching right now? Like this is a joke, and I have to wait a week to find out what invisible character is going to go next. Like, get out of here. So I think that could be very helpful. It's a shame you caught up maybe before the Sebastian/Chelsea double boot in these next 2 weeks, because that might be a little bit more difficult, to sit through live, because it's just like, well, what's the excitement on it?
Yeah, my opinion might change these upcoming weeks. Who knows? I'm also the kind of person where the finale can definitely change the season. I think one of the reasons why I liked maybe say like Game Changers was the finale. I thought the finale was really good. And, something where the finale can really change my opinion of a season. So if we get a really like dud finale, where say like Dominic doesn't end up winning the season or ends up just being a dud overall, yeah, maybe I'll not like it as much, but we'll see.
Well, it's interesting too, because like I actually said that I thought Heroes, Healers, Hustlers had one of the best finales ever last year.
Yeah.
And I love that finale, and I don't have it very high in my rankings, but it did move it up. It did move it up a little bit, because when I watched it, I was like, all right, I'm pumped after this finale. And there's some finales where you just watch them and you're like, like what is that? Like the Cambodia finale was one of those where it was kind of like a letdown. I know we had the Kimmy Keith thing, which was really cool, and Keith like almost walked out of the game, but we hadn't really gotten Kimmy or Keith in that season. And then like the final four, you knew that Jeremy was going to win. I mean, or final three, like you knew Jeremy's winning that season over Spencer and Tasha. Like there was no way he was going to lose. So, that was one of those finales where it was a better season than the finale suggested. Wentworth was the one who was in fourth place. At least her storyline was good. But, Millennials vs. Gen X had a great finale where you had 3 people who could really win the game, and Brett still says he could win the game. So maybe there were 4 people who could win the game. But that makes for a really good finale when there's more people. This finale, if you get Chelsea and Sebastian and Angela all in there, then it might just be like, it actually might hurt the season even more, because you're like, well, I don't care about 3 of the 6 people in this finale.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely kind of like the bad taste left in your mouth after, like a bad meal. It's just, if it's not a good ending, it's going to set the precedent. It's going to definitely hurt the history of the season. But if it's, like last season, you brought up Ben, Ben's win. A lot of people are critical of that, but I think it made amazing TV, and I loved watching that. And strategically, you can argue whether the fire-making tiebreaker was fair or not, and whether Chrissy should have won. But it was amazing TV, watching it all play out. So yeah, at the end of the day, I'll talk strategy, I'll talk about edits, but I'm always team good TV. I want to see the best TV possible. So
yeah. No, and I think that's why this season's just been a little bit disappointing to people, and to me, very disappointing, because I was thinking it was going to be like a top 10 season because of the way it was hyped up. But the reason why I think it's disappointing is just because there hasn't been a lot of great TV characters. And like, even if they are great TV, they just seem exhausted. Like we find out telling you, go watch Ponderosa, watch Michael, and watch Jenna, and just be like, these people should have been great TV. And instead they kind of like Alexa said, Michael always sounded exhausted. And when you read their exit interviews, it makes sense, because they were like, we never had a chance. Like we were always on the wrong side of numbers, and it gets old when you're just sitting out here on the wrong side of numbers the whole entire game. It's boring. So you get it.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think like I have been a very loud complainer about the edit, and as I feel like Phil has, and a lot of other people. But Jenna said this in her exit interview. I haven't read as many of Michael's, but I think like Wiggler said, like, was there any big move that we missed out on? Like, was there any huge moment that we missed out on? Jenna said no, because nobody wanted to play with me. And I feel like the reason they didn't get much content is because there wasn't any content to give her, because nobody wanted to get involved with her. And she found a fake idol that Wendell made, and that didn't make the cut. And Michael told her it was fake because it was still wrapped in a note, but Michael said every single idol or advantage of season came from a past season, and this one isn't referencing that, so it's a fake one. Like that would have been really cool, and I feel like that would have given like a Wendell a little more content. But I think that kind of just boils down to nobody wanted to play with them, so they couldn't give us anything.
Yeah, and that's got to get really old. I mean, Will, even in your season, you had control in certain times. Like you had control at the Michaela boot. You had control throughout. So like, it's like I can't even imagine going out there and literally. I mean, since what, Final 18, Michael has had no control in his own game. Or Jenna has had no control. That's 10 boots that they had to play, or 8 boots or 9 boots, whatever it is, that they had to play where they literally had no control over anything. And the way that every swap and everything ended up, it kept getting worse.
Yeah, I think the issue is that you have a lot of players who are playing with an old school mentality with all these new school twists, and it just is not the best combination, because you have these powerful players who are on top, not willing to make big moves, and then they have all these advantages and idols on the majority side. So it's a recipe for kind of a pengonging, I guess, if you want to call it that, like just wiping out of the minority. And yeah, my season was good in that respect, that you had people like Zeke, who was always willing to make a big move and always willing to work with people who were on the bottom. You had people like Adam willing to do the same, and Hannah, who they were like, after the Michelle vote, they were willing to come to me and work with me, and that kind of flipped the script. So I never felt like, oh, my game is over and I'm just sitting here and doing nothing. So that was always a positive too, where when you're playing the game with people who want to try to change the status quo, it definitely makes it more exciting for the players, and then that could translate to better TV. So there's so many different aspects that go into like what makes good TV, what doesn't make good TV. And I think this is a really interesting point that they brought up that I don't think I've really thought about, was the idea of just being beaten down, not just mentally and physically, but also strategically, if nobody's listening to what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that makes it that had to be a very long, like 20 days that they were out there. I mean, they lasted to day 29 and Brandon got voted out on day 9. That's a long time to just be like, this sucks. I'm just waiting till I go home. Like Michael was scrapping because you have to, but you know, when Jenna says, hey, I'm ready to just vote, and Jeff's mad, it's like, well, you know what? She is ready to just vote. She's been ready to go home. Like, she's just a sitting duck. Like, what are you going to do? So yeah, no, it's interesting. All right. Anything else here?
Good on my end.
Good on my end. Will, thank you so much again for coming on. You know, it was a pleasure. We hadn't talked to you in a while, so yeah, it's good to get you on and see what you think.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. And anytime. And you know, we love having you millennials versus Gen Xers on, because you all get like you're like the least competitive with them, I feel like. Outside of like, you didn't like bring them up on this podcast, or
they were all shit talking each other. It was awesome.
Like they like to like really drive it home. Like you mentioned, like Chris gets any chance to take a shot at Brett, and it's like that's his move. I mean, that's what he wants to do. And Brett was talking about how Adam will sit there and talk about himself for 2 hours. I mean, no, you come on here and you're like a class act, which is totally unbelievable for this Millennials versus Gen X.
Really just wildly surprising.
It is. I mean, I'm expecting, you know, this is the second time and you haven't taken like really any deep shots at anybody. So, you know, hey, why not?
I mean, Chris and Brett were going at it the entire season too. It was hilarious. I mean, that was our only form of entertainment out there, was seeing those two go back and forth for a while. So, but yeah, no, for me, I got no qualms with anybody on the season. So yeah, no shots to take.
All right, fine.
Good answer.
We tried. All right, Alexa, bring us home.
All right, I'll wrap it up. So we'll be back this Wednesday at 9 p.m. Pacific.
No, we won't. Oh, wait. No, you're wrong.
Yes, we will. Why am I wrong?
9 p.m. No, Pacific. 6 p.m. Pacific.
Oh, we're doing it on my time. Yes.
Yeah, we are. We're doing it on Alexa's time. I have to fly to Virginia at 11 o'clock at night on a red eye. So we're doing Alexa's time.
I get to go to bed at 10 p.m. instead of 1:30 in the morning. This is great. We will be live at 9 p.m. Eastern. I don't give a crap what time Pacific time. It's going to be great with our episode 12. What is it? Episode 12 recap.
Wow,
I can't even think straight. I'm so happy to go to sleep this week. I'm so happy. We'll be back on Wednesday. Dominic won the MVP, his first MVP of the season. Kellen lost the LVP, which Phil will definitely have a lot to say about, but I want to go to bed, so I'm not going to let him. In the meantime, make sure to tweet at us, Survivor Specialists, like us on Facebook, hit subscribe on YouTube. We hit 3,400 subscribers this weekend, which is really, really exciting. Keep hitting that subscribe button. Keep giving us 5 stars on iTunes. And we'll be back this Wednesday, and I will be in my jammies, and it's going to be great.
All right. And thanks so much, Will, again, for coming on.
Thank you, Will.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.